Well, welcome everybody. Today I am joined once again by my friend, my colleague, Cindy Readnower of Skinny Leopard Media. She handles everything from book publishing to marketing. She's an author herself, a business owner, has so many skills to bring to the table. Today we're going to talk about book marketing. Cindy, thank you for taking the time to come back again.
Of course, always happy to talk to you.
All right, so marketing for authors. This can be really daunting. So, a new indie author has their book. What should they think about when they're planning the beginning phases of marketing?
Well, I would say the first thing is the categories that they want to be in on Amazon and any website selling their book, because that category is going to determine what email systems or what advertising systems that they can actually use. For example, if you want to market a book, a lot of times people will give their book away for free and then create an ad on a website or a company that sends that ad out to their email list or puts it on Twitter or social media. And some of them will only take certain types of books. Some only do romance. Some will not do romance. Some will not do erotica, some do children's books, some do different types of categories. So you need to have that in mind first.
Okay, so be clear on the genre, the category, and I would think the audience that you're trying to reach would make a difference.
Yes, it does. But you know what they're finding nowadays, and I really recommend janefriedman.com. She writes a lot, and she's been writing for years about book publishing and all the things that you can do to promote your book. And one of the things that she has been noticing lately is that when you try and fine tune your audience too much, that you actually have trouble getting your ads to the right person. So she is now recommending that you let all these algorithms that Facebook has and Amazon has kind of do the work for you and just narrow it down to gender, age, and location at the most. And
Wow,
yeah, so
that's new. After we spent so much time, in a way, it makes it easier because you and I have had so many discussions about keywords and things. So now it's age, gender, and location.
mhm. And
Okay.
really location, if you're selling your book, like if you're on Amazon.com, then you're selling mainly to the United States. So that's a big location.
Mm.
And they're saying that because of their algorithms have gotten so sophisticated, that they start to see what people are clicking on. And so they're going to send your ad to people that they feel have clicked on similar ads.
Okay. And the categories, though, are the categories kept broad or are they more specific?
Well, I would say that they're fairly broad,
Okay.
depending.
Okay. So the next big question, and this is a tough one because when I talk to indie authors, even I get overwhelmed by it. I'm better now because I've been kind of in the game for a few years. But when you think about just online strategies from the website to promos to social media, professional reviews, podcasts, there's like a mess of things. Could you break
Yes.
down maybe a few that you would highly recommend authors think about for promoting their book?
Well, I think that, and as we've done with your books, Danielle, when you do a free promotion through Amazon for the digital EPUB,
Hmm.
you have to be on KDP Select. And that is a 90-day period and it renews automatically if you want it to. And then during that 90 days, you can choose to give your book away for free for 5 days, and you choose the 5 days. Or you can do a countdown promotion, or you can do a discounted promotion. And then you go to all these different companies' websites that have huge email lists that are advertising your book as either discounted or for free. Freebooksy.com, goodkindles.net, tweetyourbooks.com. And you pay them a fee to get them to see your book for free, which can be anywhere from $50 to $300, $400. But you can, for maybe $250, you can get a mix of different sites that have large email lists and get it out to a couple 100,000 people. And the hopes of that is that enough people will download the book. Then out of those people that download a free book, enough of those people will read the book. And then enough of those people that will leave you a review and help it get more promotion just through Amazon.
Okay. Now, you mentioned Amazon and those lists. So people can find those lists themselves. They're just looking for places that advertise books, or if they come to you, you already have, because you're in the know, a curated list, and you can
Yes,
recommend not only because they have to time it, right? The timing of their promotion with when these ads are going out has to be pretty
right.
precise.
It does. And also, usually you choose the day that that promotion goes out. And a lot of them, they request that you have already maybe 5 reviews, 10 reviews. Some don't require that. So you
Okay.
have to read all the fine print. And then you have to set this up, I would say, several weeks ahead of time. It used to be that you could get responses pretty quickly, but nowadays I'd say you need at least a good month to plan a promotion like that.
Okay. And that's if we're using Amazon. Are there other strategies outside of Amazon? And we know there's Amazon ads, and maybe we can touch on that. Let me touch on that first, before we move away from Amazon, because there are other options outside of that. But with Amazon, would you recommend that people do advertising like with keywords, or how do you feel about that?
I think a lot of it depends on the type of the book that you have.
Okay.
I've had clients that have spent up to $1,000 a month. And yes, it's increased their sales, but not at a profitable
Right, right.
way.
Okay.
It's like a wash. So it kind of depends. People who have nonfiction books and they have a big email list, or they already have a business and they're marketing that book directly to a lot of people right off the bat, they seem to do very well with maybe a little boost, a Facebook ad, an Amazon ad. Uh, they've already got they've already got readers out there wanting their material.
Yeah, because in some cases, for nonfiction, if somebody is a coach or a presenter on a specific topic and they've written a book, they're presenting and saying, and for everybody in the audience, here's a copy of the book. So they kind of tag team together. And I know when I used to teach yoga, I would bring the kids' books. And it was a marketing tool, but it was also a book of yoga that they could use beyond the classroom. So that worked together. Of course, now I'm a coach who writes fiction. That's a little bit harder to mesh that together. So you made a
That is.
good point about also, when you can, how can you tie it to the other work that you're doing if it makes sense? But what else can they do to promote themselves on? This is strictly online for the time being.
Yeah, well, of course, social media. There's Facebook ads, Amazon ads, Instagram ads. Everybody's got room for an ad. Of course, if you can create something either very heartfelt and emotional an emotional message,
Hmm.
something very that gets people to respond, gets people to pause and actually look at a post or an ad. That's great. There have been a lot of people on TikTok who have appealed that way. There was one book that I think it was the niece of the author, uh, said, hey, my uncle's been, so sad because his book hasn't taken off. Please take a minute to go look at it. And he sold tons of books that way. She appealed for him.
Cindy, could you go on TikTok for me and say, my friend Danielle, she hasn't been selling a lot of books. Could you please go buy them?
Uh, you know, but it's hard to know what's going to move somebody.
Yeah, because with books, you can entertain, you can make people laugh, you can educate. It depends on the purpose of the book. Um, would you recommend doing as many social media sites as possible? Are there certain social media sites that you think are better than others? Or again, is it subject specific?
Well, part of that is age, because if your audience is going to be under 30, TikTok is a wonderful place to be.
Yeah.
If it's over 30, probably you're looking at Instagram or maybe Facebook. And if it's over 50, you're probably looking more at Facebook. So you have to know where people are actually getting their information.
Okay. Do you think, say, Twitter and more recently Blue Sky, are they kind of falling off to the sidelines in favor of, say, Instagram or TikTok?
It seems that way to me. Uh, I think that Twitter, before it changed to X, had a huge audience of authors, and authors were very, very supportive. I gained 18,000 followers on Twitter
Yeah. Yeah.
because of all the authors. You would follow them, they'd follow back. Nowadays, that doesn't seem to be so common. A lot of people have left the platform because of all the issues with it. I don't think there's like one place anymore to go to just say, yeah, this is going to work.
Yeah. So now, and that's really interesting because I've seen that it kind of shift as well. Back in the day when I'd used Twitter, say in 2021, there was a lot of support for each other. If I did an ad, it got a lot more impressions. For me
Right.
now, because I'm a coach and my audience tends to be a little bit older, I have much better luck in some cases with Facebook, but also with LinkedIn because of the subject matter. I haven't, I admit I have not explored Instagram. I tried it and I was like, oh, it's one too many. So, not putting aside what I do, would you recommend that somebody has one, two, or three, or try a few and see if there's one or two that stand out? Because that could be a time suck. So, how many would you recommend somebody have?
Well, I would try one or two to start and see if you can generate interest, generate content that is actually getting watched.
Mhm.
Because each different platforms, such as on Facebook, you either have to have a business page and start advertising, or you have to have people that are friends. And so you're kind of preaching to the choir. These are people that already know you. You need to find a platform where you can reach an audience of people that don't know you. That's easier to do on, I think, Instagram or
Okay.
TikTok, especially.
Okay. So, what other things can people do? Should they pay for professional reviews or do review trades with other authors? Or, now it's podcasts. 20 years ago it was getting on TV or on the radio. Now it's podcasts.
Mhm.
So, how would you approach that as an indie author? How do they get on podcasts? How do they get reviews?
Well, the thing about reviews is that if you're asking for reviews or if you're asking for a positive review, be very careful how you ask because Amazon can threaten to shut down your account if you're only asking for positive reviews. It's just part of who they are. I have seen authors get threatened with being shut down for doing something against their platform. So ask for reviews. And I think just as much as you can, try and accumulate reviews from people that maybe are on the fringes rather than your direct family or friends, because Amazon's algorithms will find if someone that you know is leaving you a review, and they will usually remove the review. Very frustrating.
It is, even in this household. My husband's my biggest fan. He's read all my books, but he can't leave a review because of the IP address attached to the house, which is
Mhm.
kind of frustrating. Um, but that's another story. So, how do they get on podcasts? Do you, I
I
know there are
don't
some
have a
sites
lot.
more recently.
Yeah, there have been some sites. I would just Google who does podcast reviews, or even there are people on Facebook that do reviews and see if they are willing to take a free copy to just do an honest review.
And there's a company that I know another writer uses to actually find podcasts to be on, and they go there to find guests. And I don't remember it offhand, but I will paste it in the description right here
Yeah.
for later.
Mhm.
But do you think podcasts are the way to go as far as getting interviews? Do you think they're helpful from what you've seen?
I don't have any statistics to say that yes, they work or no, they
Okay.
don't. But I would say that it's a if it's free, because a lot of podcasters now say, pay me and you can be on my podcast. And I probably wouldn't go that far, but I would say that, if somebody's asking you to be on a podcast, go be on it.
Yeah, and for me, I have a rule in my head when I do things. If I'm wanting to sell a particular product out, like if I'm going on a show, and obviously I want people to buy my book, but maybe I'm talking about themes in the books like self-worth, connection. Like I'll talk about the themes, and in the sideline, here's my book if you want to go buy it. I'll do that for free. The only time I would pay somebody is if the whole thing is a pitch for the book, where it's obviously like an advertorial or so to speak. So
Yes. Mhm.
um, I would maybe make the recommendation when you go to people, it's not just be like, buy my book, buy my book. It's like talk about what makes it important and some things behind it that I think will inspire people to listen because nobody wants to listen to 30 minutes of an advertisement, right?
Right. Right. And just like any marketing, it's about thinking about your customer. What's in it for your customer, not what's in it for you.
That's perfect. Perfect. So what would your customer, your audience want to hear from you? Okay.
Mhm. Well, and again, that's going to depend on what genre your book is in too.
Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about in-person strategies. I have extroverted writer friends who will go to festivals and book fairs and have a launch party. I've gone as far as press releases to do interviews, but some of them are setting up book clubs. They're really kind of putting themselves out there. What have you seen? What do you recommend? And part two is what do you recommend for the introverted types versus the extroverted types?
Well, I have done some festivals and I have never seen a lot of people actually purchase the books. So you might get more awareness through the festivals, but a lot of the people, they're wandering from booth to booth to booth. They don't want to carry a book.
Ah, okay.
There's that. And then if it's a kid's book, you're going to see usually, at least in my experience, grandparents more often be willing to shell out their money at a festival to have something to surprise their grandchild rather than parents who are trying to get their kids something to eat or make sure they don't knock something off the table. It's just too distracting at some of these places, depending
Would it
on.
make a difference if the book fit the theme of the festival or it was an actual book festival, right? So if it's themed, would that make a difference, do you think?
It might. I have been at conventions where a lot of the speakers had books and they set up an area where these speakers did sell quite a few books. But then on the other hand, again, it's okay, you got to get them home. A lot of these people came from out of town. Are you going to ship them? Are you going to put them in your suitcase? It's just a lot of logistics involved. And then you have to get them there too, all the books there.
So, are there any in-person things that would help a person network? So maybe it's not just to sell the book. Maybe it's to meet producers to have the book turned into a film, or maybe it's to meet someone who's like, "Hey, you're an indie author, but I can introduce you to this publishing house that might pick it up." How would they go about those? Is it all done online now?
I would say that you want to reach the biggest number of people that you possibly can, and that means probably online.
Okay.
But if you are in a profession so that you have a book to offer all those people that are in your audience, even if they don't buy it there, at least they know about your book. For example, I had one author who her specialty was facilitating meetings. And she wrote her books facilitating meetings for architects, facilitating meetings for
Oh, okay.
teachers. And so every time she went to a convention, she'd end up selling 700 or 800 of her books.
Wow.
And it was because it was such a narrow specialty and she had such a captive audience, she did well.
Huh. I'll have to think on this a little bit more. So, hey, would you, before I know I'm dancing around different topics, but before I move on to like budgeting and things, do you recommend that somebody has a website and a newsletter? Are they helpful?
I think an established author that is going to keep creating more books, a newsletter is probably very helpful. Definitely a website, I
Okay.
think, is helpful. People do want to know a little bit about the author, and that anything you can do to establish that connection, that, hey, they're a person too.
Okay.
People respond better to them. People
Okay.
don't like to buy things from what they consider to be a
Ah,
business kind of thing. It's
gotcha.
like too self-serving in a way. They want to see a human element.
Ah, so would you recommend an author do whether it's Substack or Medium or maybe get some different messages related to the book out there versus just go to my website and buy my books? Like there's got to be
Yes,
something to
I think
connect.
that, yeah, I think that's great.
And one thing I haven't done, and I've seen other authors do, is they have enough of a following where they have a little Facebook group where it's like you get to ask questions to the author. And so it's
Mhm.
making people feel special in that real connection. I just wonder, if that is a good way to go.
Well, you're talking about budgeting, but a lot of it too is budgeting your time.
Oh,
So
yes, yes.
how much time do you want to put into all this? And do you really want a Facebook group that you have to monitor and you have to respond to? Because it could be worse if you don't respond to
Yeah.
someone. They could be insulted. So all of that enters into how much do you feel you can do? And I don't think that when you have a book that it's supposed to be a drudgery. I think it's supposed to be fun and a way
Yeah.
to put your creativity out into the world. And so I think that, it's kind of a value judgment what you do.
Okay. Well, that segues nicely into how much a person should plan to spend. I was thinking about it from a monetary standpoint, but they need to say how much time, how much money, and for how long, right? So
Mhm.
I would say some of us are, when we have a new release, we want to hit hard when it's out. But I realize that I'm going to be marketing for the next 10, 20 years, little by little, as I
Mhm.
write and create. I've seen other people like they hit hard, and when it's not an instant success, they're like, well, that didn't work. And then they walk away.
Yeah.
So, can you give people some guidance as far as how much they should spend and when, how much time should they be investing, and things to think about?
Well, I know you've worked with people, Danielle, that have hired publicity companies.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think some of those, the minimum are what, 3,000 a month you have to.
Something I haven't looked lately, but yes, they're up there.
Yeah, so the average author, I would say, is not in that range. They're going to have to spend their own money. And maybe to start, you try a simple promotion for maybe $250. You hit maybe
Mm.
5 different sites that are going to advertise your book, or go on Facebook and say, I'm going to spend this much per day for so many days, see if I get any hits. And it's a constant revise, revise, revise. This worked, this didn't work. Let's try this, let's try that. And I do think that as you get better with doing different things, you will see what works and have favorite sites. And I do want to say too that when you're looking at companies to actually that have the email list we were talking about, if you go to Reedsy,
Hmm.
Reegsy, they often put out the latest lists of people that will take an ad, or put your book out for free. And what I do periodically is I go through that entire list and I go to the website and I look at it and I say, is this something that I want my book on? Is this something that still appeals to readers? And you'll find a lot of these look like, they might be 20 years old. And I don't know if a young person is going to look at that website and go, ugh,
Yeah, so this is
before
not
I
a
have it.
once and done. It's constantly looking, changing, pivoting, which they can do themselves or they can hire you to do that for them.
Mhm.
What can a person expect when they work with you? Can you walk them through the process? And you do some of this marketing, a little bit of this publicity work. Do we need to talk about the difference between marketing and publicity? Do you have a fine line of what you offer people?
No, I think it all depends on the book. It all depends on where they want to go. I have a lot of authors who will tell me they don't want to get rich. They just want to get the word out. They want to be able to offer their book. Maybe it's a
Okay.
self-help book. There's other people that have a story of their family that maybe, somebody was a prisoner of war in World War II, and they just want to be able to get that word out and just have it there for people. So it really depends. There's other people that they are doing it in association with their career. So they do want to hit it harder and they want their book out.
Okay. So, what kind of final suggestions would you have? Okay, so when somebody comes to work with you, let's pretend it's not just I want a coffee table book that I can give my grandkids, but it's somebody who's either tying it to their work or they want the book to be the work. I am an author. I want people to read what I have to say. What would the process be like when working with you? How would you help them?
Well, first of all, I would say, who do they know? Who is in their circle of friends that might have any type of influence? There are books that filmmakers create.
Yeah.
And so, you know one, Danielle.
Yeah.
And so, do they have connections? Is there anybody that can help you make a connection to somebody that might help you get a speaking position
Mhm.
in front of more people, in front of organizations? I used to do some speeches in front of organizations like churches or organizations such as Habitat for Humanity that are
Mhm.
trying to get people together to help. And if you might just talk about a book that has any relationship to whatever they're trying to accomplish. So
Ah. And it doesn't
I
have to be huge. It doesn't have to be a room full of thousands of people. It could be a small community with good connections. We've had
right.
some, we don't have to mention it here, but I know you've made some really good connections in a local community in places that you wouldn't think of, like a community
Mhm.
center where you just have to reach the right person.
Mhm. That's right.
Okay. But it's and you work with people once they come to you. We've talked about the book cover process before. You'll help format their book and get it published as an ebook and print. And then you can, if they want, you can have a conversation with them about what the marketing plan would look like. Is that correct?
Right. And I'm always happy to give a free consultation to discuss where they might want to go with it.
Okay. And once again, what's the easiest way people can reach you?
Skinnyleopardmedia.com, go to the contact form and just fill that out.
Okay. Cindy, anything I know I missed a ton because this is such a broad topic, but is there anything else we want to share before we wrap up, do you think?
I would just say this is a long haul thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Those people that are lucky enough to go viral or have their book hit a wide audience quickly, I mean, that's wonderful, but that is not the norm.
Yeah, I look at it like a business startup.
That's great.
It's
Yeah.
going to take, a 3 years to start seeing momentum, 10 years you might start see success, but it's like if you are writing not as a hobby but as a career, it's like it's running a business and it's a long haul.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah,
right.
it's a good point. Cindy, as always, you're a wealth of information. Thank you so much.
Thank you.